Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the GovCloud session on enhancing citizen services through digital transformation. Today you'll hear three unique perspectives on how agencies are thinking differently about service delivery, data management, and citizen engagement. I'm Mary Ash, and I'm a GovCloud Business Development Manager. Today, both federal and state agencies are embracing new technologies that allow an unprecedented level of communication and transparency in delivering citizen services while securely managing petabyte-scale data platforms. When that data is considered sensitive or falls under certain compliance programs, many IT practitioners have turned to AWS GovCloud. Payit is one such SaaS provider that was born in AWS GovCloud about 5 years ago, a digital government and payment platform serving state, local, and federal agencies. Their mission is to transform the citizen experience and make government more modern, convenient, and mobile. You'll hear more about their customers' ICANN mobile platform in a few minutes. Accenture Federal Services helps federal agencies leverage their digital government programs to ensure that citizen demand is met, to secure citizen data, and to support faster decision cycles. You'll be hearing from two of their innovative customers today, the US Census Bureau and the Office of Federal Student Aid with the Department of Education. Our panel is moderated today by Chris Copeland, a managing director with Accenture Federal Services, who leads public cloud strategy and delivery. He served as a lead technology advisor for a number of federal agencies migrating to or architecting in the public cloud. With over 20 years of experience with enterprise-scale, mission-critical systems, he works closely with clients to ensure their successful journey to the cloud. Chris, please introduce our panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. I have to make sure to invite you to my next performance review. I've got the privilege today to introduce our three panelists, and I'm going to start with Dr. Nitin Naik, next to me on my right. Nitin comes to us as a technology leader with over 25 years of experience designing systems and delivering services in both scientific, financial, and R&D enterprises. He currently serves as the CTO at the US Census Bureau for the Department of Commerce. One of his primary focus areas is on implementing next-generation platforms for statistical data modernization using a highly scalable and secure data lake. That supports the adoption of big data analytics with disclosure avoidance capabilities. Next is Lee Allen. Lee Allen is the Executive Branch Chief Information Technology Officer from the great state of Kansas. Allen oversees a staff of more than 700 IT professionals that are charged with the delivery of IT services across 13 cabinet agencies and other smaller agencies, boards, and commissions. Lee is also the leader of the Information Technology Advisory Board and the chairman for the Information Technology Executive Council for the state of Kansas. And at the end is Mike Filinick. He's the director of the Enterprise Data Warehouse Architecture Team at the Office of Federal Student Aid for the US Department of Education. Mike comes to us with over 40 years of experience in IT, the last 18 with the Department of Education, and has served as a developer, an operator, a DBA, a quality assurance manager, as well as program and project management. Currently, Mike is responsible for FSA's Enterprise Data Warehouse Analytics program, which is hosted in AWS. He's also responsible for the implementation of the FSA's Next Generation EdMaps Enterprise Data Management and Analytic Platform Services project, which will be FSA's unified data platform, which also will reside on AWS. So gentlemen, let's get started with maybe having each of you spend about 2 to 3 minutes talking about what your journey to the cloud has been like and what your specific deployments have been.
Okay, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Mary, for getting us kicked off. So, I don't know how many of you are familiar with what the US Census Bureau does, but one of the key factors of the US Census Bureau is it provides metrics about the economy, about the people, and I think many of you better be ready because in 2020 we are going to be counting all of you in the population count. one of the key factors about census is basically it's all about big data. Big data, ever since it has been around, census has been playing a big role in it. We've been wanting to compute as fast as possible. It takes us a lot of time, and frankly speaking, the Census Bureau does about 104 surveys. The decennial census, that's what we call, is done once every 10 years, but there are many other surveys like the American Community Survey. The census puts out the economic indicators every month, which is used by the stock market, by various organizations. So the data is used across the board. And if you have children who are doing social science undergraduate degrees, they are using the census data for their research papers. The idea at this point is where census wants to take full advantage of the new data innovation. And this is where the cloud platform also plays a big role, and especially the GovCloud, because we have a lot of security and compliance issues that we have to address in our implementations, in our analytics, and that's where we prefer the GovCloud environment as mandated by laws, in the fact that it has to be on US soil and it has to be managed by US people.
Great, thanks.
So in the state of Kansas, our journey to the GovCloud started really in about 2015. At the time, I was the Human Services CIO for the state and working on my predecessor's leadership team. We were talking, doing a number of modernization efforts across the state, and we were discussing what types of requests and requirements we were getting from our business partners. And one of the ones that kept coming up again and again was the ability for a truly mobile application platform for the citizens to better engage and consume services from the state. We going through that process, we started to look at ourselves internally to understand, what capabilities we had, and we did not have any internal technical expertise to provide that mobile platform. Like a lot of state government and other government entities, we're really built and funded to maintain and run our legacy environments. We don't have the additional skill sets to ramp up for things like mobile. And we also didn't have any standards around what mobile should be for us, right? And recognizing those things in our experience working with business partners in that government environment over years is if we don't step up to provide a service for them, they will go find it themselves, right? And when you're talking about a mobile application that's intended to make life easier for the citizen and make it easier to engage, having multiple mobile platforms that would have resulted from that was not going to hit that mark either. So we went out to RFP in mid-2016, I believe, looking for a partner to come in and provide that service to us. Ultimately, Payet was our business partner that won that award. Payet was doing a little bit of work in the state already with some managed applications on the AWS GovCloud for a couple of different instances. But they came to us with a total platform approach to it where the application, the data, everything is housed within the AWS GovCloud, including things like citizen profile, their transaction history, their payment methods, and their notification preferences even. So that really got us formally into the AWS GovCloud and has really been our direction going forward now to build that out further.
Great. Mike?
Mike Felnick, U.S. Department of Education, and before going any further, I just want to make sure everybody understands what it is we do. Again, the Department of Education's mission is to provide or promote student achievement and preparation for global competitiveness by fostering educational excellence and ensuring equal access. And then federal student aid, we're an office in the U.S. Department of Education. Our core mission is to ensure that all eligible Americans benefit from federal financial assistance, grants, loans, and work-study programs for education beyond high school. And so you can appreciate the fact that, with our diverse population, the number of people that we service, we have to have good solutions that allow us to be able to be responsive to citizen requirements or citizen needs. To that end, We currently, actually this past year, we provided more than $120 billion in financial aid to approximately 13 million students at nearly 6,000 post-secondary institutions. Our employees are dedicated to providing aid and ensuring against fraud and abuse on both the recipient side and institutions, whether it be a school or a lender servicer. The 1,300 employees that operate out of our Washington, D.C. office and our 10 regional offices throughout the country are so dedicated to that. As you can see from, and I think this is the experience of a lot of folks in industry as well as the government, a lot of our data services evolved over several years and have been, I think the common term here is siloed. We needed a common platform to bring in the entire life cycle aid or aid life cycle data in order to properly do our analytics and our assessments about whether our programs made a difference, about are we doing the best we can do to prevent fraud and other abuse, to assure that we are not making improper payments and wasting the taxpayer dollars, and overall governing and administering this $1.5 trillion student aid portfolio, which is also why we're probably the most hated of all the federal departments, because a lot of folks owe us money. That being aside, we do have multiple programs to help alleviate any issues, so please see our website if you or someone you know is having struggles paying back their loan.
Great, thanks. So, obviously big data is a big use case within cloud. Could you all take a minute and comment on how your data strategy has been impacted by having, your enterprise-wide data really in the cloud? Maybe Lee, start us off with that.
Yeah, so for us, it's the realization that we need a data strategy initially. So not something that the state had done in an enterprise approach before. So what I've done since January with the new administration coming in is I've hired my chief technical officer. He's dual rolled as a chief information technology architect for the state as well. And the kind of data architecture is the first piece that he's looking into as to what we need to do there and how we can map out an actual strategy. Looking down the road of adding a chief digital or a chief data officer. And then I would like to also get a chief privacy officer within the executive branch as well to help kind of give us a more complete, rounded approach to a data strategy. But right now, very much in the planning stages.
Great. Nitin, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so in our case, the data strategy is huge. One of the big things is the fact that we get data in different formats. So there is data that we collect, and so that is pretty sort of defined and structured. But then we get a lot of data from third parties. And in the social sciences, that's all called administrative records. So we get data from IRS, we get data from Social Security Administration, we get data from the banks, we get data from the businesses. So from a data strategy standpoint, one of the key factors is the fact of, can we be flexible enough to bring in whatever data we need and then manage it? And then the big part is being able to link the data. So that's where we are looking towards some of the newer capabilities that big data technology gives, which is rather than storing the data in a structured format, we would like to store the data in an unstructured format and then structure it at the time of read as opposed to the time of write. And because we have massive amounts of data, that's where the cloud environments help us, because we have been doing a lot of chunking of data because our compute capabilities are limited. So that's where the data strategy now starts expanding and telling us, okay, what else can we do with it?
That's great. And Mike, maybe as a follow-up to that, with cloud being this big data platform that's continuously improving, like what have you seen with the advantages you've been able to take take advantage of specifically in the cloud?
Sure, absolutely. Probably the biggest advantages are the capacity on demand pieces of having in GovCloud, but also our ability to augment our data from multiple sources, similar to Census, and to constantly build this model of our entire aid lifecycle. And we were doing that with on-prem. We had an on-prem data warehouse. This past September, this past year, we moved to GovCloud. And what we're seeing now is that we have a lot more flexibility in our ability to bring in new data, our ability to consolidate different data providers that we have for our data into, again, a common platform and a common environment. And that gives us an awful lot of flexibility in being able to present the data, do our analytics the way we need to, utilize different tools. We have a lot of different options now while we're in GovCloud for utilizing tools that are provided there that are part of the solution. And so what we've seen is a significant increase in our productivity in being able to generate meaningful reports. Again, these are meaningful for the determination of policy and for the review of our programs and our efforts.
Okay. Maybe taking some of this from a security and compliance point of view with now enterprise data up in the cloud, what has been your biggest challenge that you've had to address and overcome in some of this migration to cloud?
Frankly speaking, that is one of the biggest stumbling blocks we've been sort of addressing. And I think, I would say, I think it was late 2016, late 2016, we had, and that time I was working at IRS. We were waiting for the cloud providers to give us what we consider FedRAMP high capability. And one of the key capabilities we were looking for was encryption of data at rest and encryption of data in motion. The reason why that is important at Census, as I had mentioned, we get all types of data. So Census itself is controlled by something called Title 13 law, which prevents us from disclosing our data to any other agency. You have to be in sworn status from Census itself to be able to access data. Similarly, when we get IRS data, the IRS law applies. We get health data, HIPAA law applies. We get other data so from DHS or anyone else, their laws apply. So the last, and this is part of the data strategy part, the last time I looked at it, there were about 14 different laws that we have to comply with. And the security, the compliance, and all that is, frankly speaking, the same requirement. It is identical, it's just we have to be able to track who accessed what data, and we have to know where the data is at all times. And so this is part of the key fact that we are actually on the path of building what we call an enterprise data lake using Hadoop platforms and some of the new capabilities with Yarn and other security parameters that help us do that ability of security at rest and in motion.
Lee, I'm going to ask you a question. Is there a specific service that you've been able to bring to the platform that's really changed how the citizens have engaged with government?
Yeah, so one of the really nice things we've been able to do. So we launched the ICANN application platform in, I believe, April of 2018 with a couple of services in there, but we were able to provide in October the first mobile application for driver's license renewal in the country at that time. Not just a web-enabled form you could go fill out, but a truly mobile application for driver's license renewal. And it's been a real, game changer for people in Kansas. For those, it's a narrative, conversation-based application that you walk through. The citizen answers questions that qualify them for renewal online. If they hit a question that disqualifies them, it provides them that feedback as to what their next step should be. If they go completely through, they get their new driver's license in 2 weeks in the mail. They don't have to come in and stand in line. They don't have to show up with the wrong documentation and come back again later. They're not calling around to offices trying to figure out where to go and what to do. And it really has a duplicative effect. Not only are those people serviced online and they get that ease, but it also reduces the number of people that are coming into our offices. So for those folks that have to come into the offices, there's fewer people standing in line in front of them now when they get there. So it's been a real nice piece for the citizens of the state of Kansas and something we're really proud of.
You've really seen that citizen satisfaction drive.
Absolutely, yeah. So now we struggle for a great way to measure satisfaction across the state, but the testimonials we receive are all very, very good, very positive on it. It's got some demographic restrictions around it due to statutory requirements around anyone over 50 having to have an annual eye exam to renew their driver's license. So we're working, the Secretary of Department of Revenue and others are working to get that statute changed in the next year's legislative session to move that up to age 60 to give us a wider breadth of population. In Kansas, we issue driver's license for 6 years. So if you get one at 16, then the population to renew online right now is between 22 and 50 years old. So it's a fairly small number of people, really, in a state with 2.9 million people. But out of that group of 2.9 million, the folks that fall between 22 and 50 is a much smaller number, and we've got about 350,000 unique accounts created today already. So when you run through the numbers, we estimate we're well over a third of the way through the penetration with the people that should be applying for the licenses. So.
Great. So Mike, I'll start with you. Like, what was maybe your 1, 2, 3 critical factors really in the decision to move to AWS?
So we were in a situation where one of our primary high value asset systems, which is the mother to our data warehouse, was in a data center, and due to contractual issues and concerns, we had to move. And we were given a very small time frame to do that. The quickest and easiest way to do that was to go cloud. And that was after years and years in the Department of Education and within federal student aid of reviewing and looking at different cloud solutions. And also having this mandate from federal CIO of cloud first. We took a leap, and I would think probably the single best factor there for us was our confidence in our SI. Our systems integrator, gave us the sense that this could be done. It could be done in a timely way, and it could be done in a way that would not impact our ongoing operations. And so that was our primary concern about moving forward, and that's kind of what pushed us to go that direction. And then since then, it has become an understanding of GovCloud has become the foundation for our next gen modernization efforts that we're moving forward on within federal student aid to consolidate onto one platform all of our various different siloed environments. To be able to utilize a unified data platform, which will sit in AWS, in GovCloud, and that pretty much is the driver for our next 5 years or so of development work.
Is it fair to say that you set out with one goal and one mission to
Right.
migrate to cloud, and then you were there and you realized the benefit of that could be leveraged for your next gen work and other work?
Absolutely. Our goal was to move someplace quick where we felt comfortable and confident that we could maintain our data warehouse and our primary application in a way that would secure and assure us of our privacy, because we do have a significant amount of PII in our data warehouse and in our systems. So that was a real important consideration. And so again, with the aid of our SI, we were able to move forward, and I don't think we regret moving in that direction.
Right. Nitin, maybe same question to you. What was the main driver for you all in your decision to move to AWS?
So, as I said, one of the key things was all our compliance and security things. So when my team did the research and myself, one of the things which stood out was the implementation that CIA had done for the intelligence community to handle the secret and the top secret information. So they had built their whole system on AWS and Accumulo. So we decided we were going to build a similar capability for sort of the social sciences arena, and that's where the census comes in, because though we don't have what you call the intelligence classification, but we have our own classifications of sensitive but unclassified, and now it's called controlled but information. So we wanted to take advantage of all the open source that CIA had done, and we wanted to apply it, and AWS was one of the key partners there. But the platform we've chosen is more of an open source, and that's where we are hoping that we can build it both in our premises and also in the cloud so that we can move back and forth. The other aspect is automation. We are looking for heavy scalability and automation where we can have our business users spin up environments, very controlled environments. They can load the data, execute the code, do the analysis, and then let go of the environment. So it's that way, we are making full use of the capacity we are getting, and all the CapEx is now more of an OpEx. So that's where the cloud and AWS was, especially the GovCloud with its encryption, was a key factor.
Was there a real key aha moment when you were looking at, do we build this out? We've got all these security compliance regulations. We're looking to build this in an on-premises world. Was there an aha moment that happened that said, cloud is the right path for us?
So we actually did a proof of concept. We actually did a very small proof of concept where we could actually show control of data all the way to the individual cell. When we showed that to our management, they said, okay, that is the direction we want to go, because now you have reduced all the risk in terms of security and compliance, and you can prove to us that we can meet those needs. So that was one of the biggest parts.
That's great. That's great. Maybe shifting a little bit and thinking about, what have the key outcomes been for each of you, maybe starting Lee, if you were to itemize, like, what have been the real key benefits that you've seen throughout this journey to cloud for you?
So key benefits for the state of Kansas has been first and foremost the ability to meet that demand from the citizens and our agencies for a mobile application platform. One of the primary things that I'm most excited about is when you really look into what we've done with Pay It and the ICANN platform, is ICANN provides an e-wallet that creates a single identity attached to a payment source for the citizen, right? In state government, we struggle for a single identity. We have citizens siloed across every agency and program that they're serviced by without one single identity that follows them throughout the life of their services from the state. ICANN provides us a platform that we can start attaching other applications to look at that as a single identity for that citizen, so that they can be, John Smith at 123 Main Street, regardless of which service they're consuming from the state. And then thinking down the road with what that service is or what it could be, we could start to apply that service to other things for John Smith, right? So if John Smith's using a commercial website and he has a PayPal link at the bottom, why can't he have an ICANN link at the bottom as well, where he can use that as a lever to pay and authenticate his identity with that service as well. So a lot of the benefits are things that we're just kind of realizing as we move forward with the platform, and we're very excited about other use cases that we're working on over that we hopefully will have in place within the next year. Pay It's engaged with a number of our agencies for other services to put into the either into the mobile wallet or into the other offerings that Pay It supports for us. Not every use case belongs in the mobile platform, but Pay It is able to provide us services on a number of those use cases, regardless of where they land within the platform.
Great. Maybe Mike, same question to you. Like, if you were to just itemize those key outcomes for you.
Well, I would also agree that it's enabled us to think a little bit more about the future and have definite plans of moving forward for modernization of our organization. But one of the things that we deal with is we get a significant number of very complex data requests that come from a variety of stakeholders, to include the White House, Congress, different academic institutions, private citizens, et cetera, that we are on task to fulfill. And so we're looking at leveraging a lot of some of the AWS tools that are available in GovCloud to develop better portals that would enable and more quickly to provide that kind of information for specific query requests, et cetera. That's one of the areas, but our primary focus at this point is, again, understanding how, I will say, convenient GovCloud has been for us, leveraging that GovCloud platform for our total modernization going forward, and being able to have one central platform for all of our high-value assets so that we can have better control and understanding of our data for analytics purposes, reporting purposes, and also for operations oversight, to ensure that all the components that work for providing student aid are working properly, are compliant, and are performing the best they can for the recipients of aid.
Nitin, I want to loop back on a comment that Lee had made earlier around how he's seen citizen engagement improve. Is there something that you would point to that's going to improve, citizen engagement with Census Bureau?
Yeah, so one of the key metrics that we are trying to address is how can we reduce respondent burden. So the more data we get from other places, we are trying to link the data, therefore then we can ask less questions, or we can approach the respondent less number of times if we can get data from other sources. So one of the big factors, many of our surveys, the data volume runs into terabytes of data because we are monitoring businesses, we are monitoring the population. When we are monitoring, in the sense we are counting the population. So we are trying to verify that, okay, do we have the right records? And that's where we want to reduce the amount of questions or the amount of data that we need from the respondents, whether it's the business or whether it's the individual. And that's why when we now have a platform and an infrastructure that can handle the large amounts of data, we can do that much easier and therefore reduce the amount of times we have to reach out to the respondents.
So because of this, is it fair to say the scalability of the cloud has allowed you to have this data and be able to synthesize it more, maybe better, so that you don't have to ask for more information because you've already had it, now you're just able to bring it together?
Yeah, well, one is linking of the data, so we want to bring it together, but the other is processing. There's a lot of processing and analytics, so I think to piggyback on some of the other comments made, we are looking at newer technologies like AI and machine learning to say, okay, how can we use those tools to help us in terms of our analytics? We are looking at newer techniques, newer platforms like Spark, or our traditional platform is SAS for analytics, but we are looking at R, Python, to be basically doing big data types of processing.
That's great. That's a great segue too, because the next question is, we're talking about where everyone is and the success you've had and the value it's brought. Maybe talk a little bit on where you're going next, and maybe Lee start us off on that.
So where we're going next with the platform is really around what other services can we roll into that platform. Again, like I said, Payet's engaged with a number of agencies currently to discuss what can or should be done there. We're looking to build out, again, I work with a number of agencies, boards, and commissions that many of them are fee-based. They do some type of certification or licensing, a transaction with a citizen to provide that service. And so I find myself in the role of really a promoter of the service and helping to connect my business requirements with our mobile vendor to direct as many of those things, to have that discussion about, again, could this or should this be in the mobile platform that Payet provides us in the GovCloud. So where we're at today, we will look very different a year from now. That's kind of the best I can say about the future of it. We have a number of things in flight right now that just aren't ready to be discussed, but they will hopefully be coming out soon.
Mike, I know you talked a lot about where you're going and where you're seeing the adoption of the platform overall. Is there anything else you wanted to add more about where you're going? I know we're talking a little bit about machine learning or artificial intelligence.
Right.
How does that factor into?
Well, and again, it allows us to go beyond where we currently are with our analytics platform. Again, this whole concept of the development of a unified data platform, which is enabled because of the common platform that we're going to be on. Having a unified data platform allows it, in which we'll be able to have transparency into all the operational data that we are currently doing or using, to include actual servicing of loans, payment information, student status, borrower status, all of that will have a much more complete and robust environment for doing that because of GovCloud. And that really, as I said, that really pretty much focuses on our next 5 or 6 years of development. So incorporating all of these new components, new systems that are actually allowing us to decommission a lot of the old siloed systems is really going to do a lot for us in terms of savings, give us better, fresher data from which we can extrapolate and interpolate trends, and also provide better services and better intelligence to our management so that we can determine the effectiveness of certain programs and if there's a need for new programs.
Right. Nitin, anything else to add on where you're seeing yourself and where you're all going at the Census Bureau overall?
Yeah, one of the key things we are keeping track, there's a lot of legislation which is coming out. So there's, for the social science community, there's evidence-based policy making. There was a legislation which was passed last year. There's now a new one which is about the federal data strategy. And then there is a new one potentially looking at innovation in artificial intelligence and machine learning. So basically what we are trying to do is prepare ourselves, one, as I said before, to reduce the respondent burden and be prepared for the next generation of technologies, but then also be prepared to start addressing some of these new legislations which are coming out, because we will be the one agency providing some of the data that is required for those laws. So we are trying to make sure we are prepared to do that.
Chris, I'd just like to add also, the federal data strategy that recently came out, the draft I think was passed last week, June 4th, I believe it came out. And it pretty much highlights the proper data governance in a way that I don't think we could have thought of in years gone past. It's only because of again, a common platform, GovCloud being a common platform, that we're able to do all the things around data governance to assure that we are compliant not only with this most recent mandate or memo that came out from OMB, but also so that we are properly exercising best practices in our efforts.
I guess if we were to start to think about what advice or lessons learned would you give to your colleagues or the audience here today about how to embark on that journey to the cloud? Like, what were some of the, Nitin, you talked a little about prototyping and showing the art of the possible. There were some burning platform things. What would be just advice that you'd say to consider, or really some key lessons learned that others could benefit from as they start on that journey? And maybe, Lee, you can launch us off on that.
Yeah, sure. So for us, there's probably two things that I would talk about, and the first one's probably obvious, is when you start out, For us, we were changing, a business process, providing a new service to the citizens, and we did not start with a baseline of what our current efficiency level was within those programs in our agencies. So we launched into it strictly from the standpoint of what service and what level of satisfaction can we provide the citizen, and we did not look internally at the business units necessarily, and they were party to that too. The time and commitment it takes to really get to those baselines can be taxing. So I would recommend now that we have data now on what we're getting from the mobile application. So now we're starting to go back and have those conversations in the business units about, okay, what outcomes is this delivering for you on a day-to-day basis within your business unit? It would be better served to have had that up front. So think about that before you launch into anything. Certainly when you're transforming services. The other thing that I've really spent a lot of my time on is being an educator and a promoter for what our cloud investment is. Us rolling out both a mobile application and a cloud, true production cloud instance for the state at the same time. I get a lot of different conversations on it. I know it wasn't too long ago you couldn't get 5 IT people together to agree on what cloud was, right? So when I'm talking to people outside of IT about cloud, they often think that it's just kind of the Wild West with our data, right? That it's just out there in the wild with everybody to get it as they feel free. And so I have to have those conversations about the inherent security that is in GovCloud for us and the additional things that our contract with Payit provides with how they deliver those applications, so that they get a better understanding of what cloud is, and then I kind of remind them of some of the other platform as a service things that they're consuming on a daily basis already, and kind of tie that scenario together for them. But then promoting what we're doing as well. It's very new for our business partners, so me getting out and talking to them, getting our folks from Payit in front of them to kind of explain what they're doing and how they can help transform their business processes. That's been a big part. Just be prepared to do those things going into it.
And Nitin, for you, same question. What's been key lesson learned throughout this journey?
So this journey has been a long one. I would say there are about 3 main tracks that everyone has to be careful about. Lee highlighted one, which is the business aspect. What is the value that the business is going to get? In our case, we are trying to give them a platform or a infrastructure that can handle more data, that can do the analysis, can help them produce products, in our case, data products, faster. The second side is IT. IT operations changes tremendously. If you do it right, there is a lot of standardization that has to be achieved. So if you adopt the services that are provided by the cloud providers like AWS, like infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, that requires a certain amount of standardization. Okay, it's very similar to you can go to an auto lot and you can buy the small size car, mid-size car, large car. You can get small size compute, mid-size compute, large compute. Depends on your load, but it is all standardized. There's no picking. We have standards set, and that's a change for the IT side. The third one, I think federal government is huge on this, is the whole authority to operate process from the security wing. Believe it or not, the more customized environment you make, the more load it is on the security side, because they have to certify every environment for all these compliances that are mandated. There's no if, then, but. You have to have that certification. But if we can centralize the platform, as Michael was saying, and if we can centralize or standardize these environments and standardize the way we operate, then the ATO process is much reduced. We piggyback on the FedRAMP certification, and then you add the agency ATO on top of it, and it's much easier to handle. If you don't do that, then you take the evils of on-premise security management, you take it into the cloud, you are not going to get any benefit from that.
You talked about the small, medium, and large, and if I'm a developer, I'm always going for large so I can get my workload done faster, right? How key has governance been in a role for you in this this journey? And maybe for all of you, how's that governance model really been different from maybe how you have operated in an on-premises world?
Well, the governance, I think you try to bake in the governance into the whole operation and the environment. It is not an after the fact. Generally, governance tends to be an after the fact as opposed to, hey, it's already there. You don't have to think more about it. It's part of the choice. Now, with regards to spinning up, sure, you spin up the environment, the meter's running. And so what we will show is we will show you the cost. Okay, it's like the taxi cabs. The more you ask it to go around, the meter's running. And so what we are now showing is transparency of the cost. We will have a meter where you will see how much it costs you to run it, and therefore they have a budget.
That's great. And the elasticity you can get in a cloud environment from maybe an on-premises world where you're able to consume as you need it.
Correct.
Is really going to be an overall benefit for right size, right workload, right operational paradigms.
And there are very few which are continuous need. They're all one-time need. I need it one time, finish the processing, I'm done. I can then let go of the compute and give it to someone else. So from an IT perspective, that's great in terms of resources. The resources are now usable by anyone.
So Chris, getting back to your earlier question, I think that, I was in the position going back a couple of years of, considering cloud and what we needed to do to move toward cloud, GovCloud being the primary one for federal services. And I think that I love Nitin's idea of prototyping. And there's no reason why you can't take a relatively small application, perhaps a COTS product of some kind or another, and promote it into GovCloud, and start to use it effectively, see what the difference is, see how much easier it may or may not be, see how less expensive it may or may not be, as a way of at least proving to management and proving to yourself that this is an adequate way of moving forward and could be a solution to your overall IT infrastructure requirements.
That's great. I mean, I think we've heard a lot about the drivers for your journey to cloud and the success that you've had there and how it's changed your overarching data strategy, how it's established your overall platform for growth, how it's enabled newer technologies that can be used in the future. It's improved citizen services and satisfaction and reduced people waiting in line. Just the last couple of minutes that we had, maybe if each of you just want to take a moment and just kind of summarize, what the overall value has been in this journey to cloud with AWS. And what it's meant overall from a high-level standpoint in your success. Maybe Lee.
So yeah, I can start out with that. So for us, the overarching win or gain for us is just having this platform to now better connect and meet our citizens' needs. That's primarily what it boils down to. It opens us up to other things, like I said, around having a single source of identity for citizens that we can leverage. So it's just a tool set we've never had before. And doing it in the fashion that we are, where Payit is really owning that GovCloud instance. They're managing behind the scenes, doing interactions with our legacy systems. It's really been an efficient, fast delivery of these services to the citizens, and that's a huge win in state government right there. Just being able, the speed that we can now deliver applications has been a huge benefit to us.
That's great, Mike.
Yeah, I really like the next day delivery and the Prime Video that we get with Amazon.
Don't we all? Same day delivery coming soon.
I think just again that it has allowed us to or opened our eyes to what is the potential. Again, leveraging concepts that always were great and ideal now seem possible in reality. In my situation, it's especially around our unified data platform. So I think that's really how this has transformed the way we're thinking now at Federal Student Aid.
That's great. And Nitin?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is the IT transformation of being able to deliver to the business the type of capabilities that they need. To Lee's point, okay, yes, ultimately the citizens or the users of that data, that service, or whatever, we want to give them a better experience. But on the inside, the business has now a better chance of spinning up environments as fast as possible, doing the analysis as quickly as possible, getting access to large amounts of data. That was one of the biggest issues, I think, in decision making. People wanted access to data, and now we can give it to them, and at a much cheaper rate. It's not a huge infrastructure cost. The timeline is reduced tremendously.
So I'd really like to thank you all for being up here with us today and sharing those insights. I think it was super, super engaging and super valuable to learn, how your journeys have been different and how they've been enabled through cloud. I think we'll be up here for questions if you all have some for a little bit. And I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. I think it was a really great session.